The old high school looked smaller than they remembered. 15 years had passed, but as Maya stepped through the rusted gates, she swore she could still hear echoes of laughter in the hallways thereafter. She had organized a reunion herself, though part of her wished she hadn't. Everyone was different now. Careers, marriages, divorces, adulthood had rearranged them all. The idea was simple. Open the time capsule they buried behind the gym in 2009. Inside, it were notes they'd written to their future selves. Just a fun idea, Jake had called it back then, though he'd cried when they sealed the box. Now, in 2025, 5 of them stood there again: Maya, Jake, Leela, Evan, and Sophie. The afternoon sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the cracked basketball court. Feels weird, doesn't it? Jake said, forcing a laugh. Maya nodded. Yeah, like ghosts of who we thought we'd be. Evan knelt down, brushing away dirt until his fingers hit metal. Together they pried the box open. The smell of old paper filled the air, fragile yet familiar. Leela reached in first, pulling out her letter. While my handwriting was awful, she said, trying to sound casual, but her voice trembled. One by one, they unfolded the past. Dreams of becoming artists, world travelers, lovers who'd never grow apart. They all smiled at the memories, but under the laughter was something heavier: the quiet realization that life hadn't gone as planned. When it was Maya's turn, she hesitated. Her envelope was sealed tighter than the rest, edges worn, her name faded. Go on, Sophie urged gently. Maya inhaled and opened it. Inside, in her 16-year-old scrawl, it read, asterisk, if you're reading this, please tell me you didn't forget how to dream. Asterisk, her throat tightened. Around her, everyone had gone quiet. In that moment, it wasn't nostalgia anymore. It was confrontation between who they were and who they'd become. That night, the group gathered in Maya's old bedroom, the same room where they'd spent countless weekends talking about the future. Posters still hung on the wall, faded from time, and the tiny record player in the corner still worked when Maya turned it on. A low hum of nostalgia filled the air. We really thought we'd have it all figured out by now, Jake said, flopping onto the bed. I thought I'd be a musician touring the world. Instead, I sell insurance. Sophie laughed gently. Hey, you still play, right? Yeah, he said quietly. For myself, Leela poured wine into mismatched glasses. At least you had a dream. I spent my 20s chasing promotions. I blinked and 10 years disappeared. Evan, who had been silent most of the evening, looked at his unopened letter. I'm not sure I want to read mine, he said. Why? Maya asked. He shrugged. Because I think the person who wrote it wouldn't like me very much now. No one spoke. Outside, rain began tapping softly against the window, the kind that makes time feel slower. Finally, Maya broke the silence. Maybe it's not about liking who we became, she said. Maybe it's about forgiving who we didn't. They all stared at her, the weight of that sentence settling in. One by one, they lifted their glasses, a quiet toast to the versions of themselves that never quite made it. To the dreamers we used to be, Sophie whispered. And for the first time that night, they all smiled, not because they were happy, but because they understood. The next morning, the rain hadn't stopped. Maya woke up early, restless, replaying her letter in her mind. Downstairs, the others were already gathered around coffee, sleepy but quieter than before. The air felt heavier, like something had shifted between them. Sophie was scrolling through old photos on her phone, laughing softly. We really thought we were unstoppable, she said. We were, Jake replied. We just didn't realize growing up means slowing down. Leela leaned against the counter, her expression distant. You know what's funny, she said. I spent years thinking success meant never looking back. But now that we're here, I'd give anything to go back for one more day. Evan finally opened his letter. The room went silent. His voice was low as he read, asterisk, your future me. I hope you finally learned to say what you feel. Asterisk, he smiled bitterly. Guess I'm still working on that. Maya reached out and touched his arm. You just did, she said softly. They all laughed, the kind of laugh that breaks tension instead of joy. Then Sophie said something that made them all pause. Do you ever wonder what we tell our past selves now? The question hung in the air, thick and raw. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Maya said quietly that the people you love won't stay forever. So don't waste time being afraid to say her. Words lingered long after she stopped speaking. Outside, the rain began to ease, as if even the sky had been listening. Later that day, they decided to visit the hill behind the school, the one where they'd spent their last night together. Before graduation, the grass had grown wild, the city skyline barely visible through the mist. Maya carried the box of letters, now almost empty, and placed it on the same stone where they'd once carved their initials. Feels like another lifetime, Jake said, kicking at the dirt. Because it was, Leela murmured. She stared at the horizon, her voice low. Back then, we thought adulthood would fix everything. Turns out, it just hides the cracks better. Sophie sat down beside her. Maybe the cracks are what make us real. Evan nodded. Yeah, we used to dream about being perfect. Now I just want to be honest. The wind picked up, carrying the faint smell of rain again. Maya looked around at them, her friends, older, bruised by life, but still here. You know, she said, smiling softly, we could write new ones. Letters to who we are now. Jake raised an eyebrow. And bury them again? No, Maya said. We keep them this time. Because we're the ones who need reminding now. They all fell silent, thinking about it. Leela took out her phone, opened her notes app, and began typing. To my present self, she whispered, You're doing okay. Even when it doesn't feel like it. Maya smiled. Maybe this was what growing up really meant, not chasing who they were supposed to be, but learning to love who they already were. That evening, the friends decided to stay at a small cabin near the lake, though. Same place they'd once snuck into as teenagers. The water shimmered under the sunset, reflecting shades of gold and memory. Leela lit a small fire while Jake played an old song on his guitar. The same one they used to sing on graduation night. Feels like nothing's changed, Sophie said softly. Except everything has, Evan replied. They all laughed, but there was truth in his words. As night fell, Maya pulled out a small envelope from her bag, one she hadn't shown them yet. What's that? Jake asked. It's from Ms. Rowan, Maya said, referring to their old English teacher. She mailed it to me last week. Said she found it while cleaning her desk. Letters we wrote for a class project. She opened it slowly. Inside were 5 smaller envelopes, one for each of them. Dated May 12, 2009. Maya handed them out. I don't even remember writing this, Sophie said, unfolding hers. Neither do I, Leela whispered. The letters were different from the time capsule ones, more personal, more raw. Jake read his first. Asterisk, and to let fear make you ordinary. Asterisk, he chuckled. Then looked down, tears glinting. Guess I failed that one. Maya shook her head. No, Jake, you lived. That's not failure. The fire crackled as they all sat in silence, rereading words written by kids who believed in infinite futures. For a moment, it felt like those kids were still there watching, forgiving, and waiting to be remembered. The fire had almost burned out by the time they finished reading. The room was quiet except for the soft crackle of wood and the low hum of Jake's guitar. Maya leaned back, staring at the ceiling. It's strange, she said. We wrote those letters thinking we'd be warning our future selves, but I think they were meant to save us instead. Sophie nodded. Save us from forgetting who we were. Leela smiled faintly. Maybe that's why it hurts to realize we've been running so far from the people who used to believe in us. Evan looked at his letter again, then folded it carefully. I think my younger self would forgive me, he said. He'd just be disappointed. I stopped writing music. Jake handed him the guitar without a word. Then don't stop. Evan hesitated. then started to play a quiet tune, something familiar, something old. The melody floated through the cabin, soft and fragile, pulling memories out of the shadows. For a moment, they were 17 again, barefoot and reckless, laughing at the stars and swearing they'd never grow up. The song ended, and silence followed, heavy but warm. "We should do this every year," Sophie whispered. Maya smiled. Not to remember the past, to make new ones. They all nodded, understanding without needing to speak. Outside, the lake shimmered under the moonlight just like it had back then. Only now they knew how precious it all was. The next morning, the group woke to the soft light of dawn. The lake was calm, mist curling over the surface like breath on glass. Maya stepped outside first, wrapping herself in a blanket. The air smelled like wet earth and pine. The kind of morning that makes you nostalgic for no reason. One by one, the others joined her, coffee mugs in hand. No one spoke for a while. "Do you ever think," Sophie finally said, "about who we'd be if we'd stayed in touch all these years?" Leela smiled sadly. "Maybe better versions of ourselves. Or maybe we needed to fall apart to find out who we really were." Jake nodded, staring at the water. Back then, everything felt permanent. Friendships, promises, even love. Maya looked down. "Maybe that's why we wrote those letters, because deep down, we knew it wouldn't last." The silence that followed wasn't painful this time. It was acceptance. They had all lost something: time, dreams, people. But they'd also found something else: perspective. Evan took out his phone and snapped a photo of the lake. "To remember this," he said. "Not how it was, but how it feels right now." They all smiled, realizing that maybe the purpose of those old letters wasn't to reconnect with who they used to be. It was to remind them to still look forward. The past had done its job. It had taught them to appreciate what was left. That night, they sat around the fire again, quieter, softer, almost peaceful. The meager flames flickered against their faces, revealing traces of the kids they once were. Leela leaned her head against Sophie's shoulder. "Remember when we thought 30 was ancient?" she said, laughing through tears. "Now I'd give anything to tell that girl not to rush." Jake poked at the fire with a stick. "We were so sure we'd have time. We thought we'd always have one more summer, one more song, one more chance." Maya stared into the flames. "Maybe that's what growing up really means, realizing that someday comes faster than we think." Evan nodded. "But it doesn't mean it's over. We can still start again." The group fell silent, the warmth of the fire wrapping around them like a fragile memory. Sophie whispered, "Do you think our younger selves would be proud of us?" Maya thought for a long moment. "Maybe not proud," she said, "but I think they'd understand." The fire crackled louder then, as if agreeing. Jake smiled faintly. "So, what do we do now?" Maya looked around at her friends, older, wiser, beautifully imperfect. "We write one more letter," she said. "Not to our future selves this time. To the people we used to be." The idea hung there, glowing in the quiet night. No one argued. For the first time, the past didn't feel like something they'd lost. It felt like something they could finally make peace with. The next morning was still and golden. The fog lifted slowly from the lake, and for the first time in years, everything felt quiet in the right way. Maya set out blank sheets of paper and pens on the table. "Let's do this," she said. One by one, they began to write. No one spoke. The sound of pen scratching against paper was enough. Leela's hand trembled as she started her letter. Asterisk, to the girl who never thought she was enough, you were. Asterisk. Jake stared at his page for a long time before finally writing. Asterisk, you don't need to be famous to matter. The people who love you are enough. Asterisk. Sophie wrote with tears in her eyes. Asterisk, you tried so hard to keep everyone happy. I hope you finally learned to make yourself happy. 2. Asterisk, Evan sat quietly, writing slowly. Deliberately. Asterisk, you didn't say what you felt back then. But I'm saying it now. You made it. Asterisk, when Maya finally began hers, she hesitated. The words came slowly. Asterisk to the girl who believed dreams had an expiration date they don't. You can still start again. Asterisk. When they finished, they folded the letters and placed them in the box. No one said where it would go. It didn't matter. The box wasn't for the future this time. It was for closure. As they watched the sunrise reflect off the lake, Maya whispered, "Maybe this is what we were meant to do all along, not to remember who we were, but to forgive who we couldn't be." And in that quiet, they all understood that forgiveness was the truest form of growing up. A year later, Maya returned to the hill alone. The grass had grown taller, and the stoneware they'd carved their initials was cracked, but still there like an old promise that time had tried and failed to erase. She carried a small notebook filled with letters, not from the past, not to the future, just fragments of now. She sat down, feeling the quiet hum of the world around her. Life had moved on. Jake had opened a tiny music studio. Sophie had started writing again. Leela had left her job to travel. Evan was teaching kids how to play guitar. They still texted sometimes, though not often, but that was okay. Some bonds didn't need constant tending, they just lived quietly inside you. Maya opened the notebook to the last page and wrote one final line. Asterisk to my future self, I hope you never stop forgiving, never stop growing, and never stop remembering that the girl who dreamed is still in you. Asterisk. She tore out the page, folded it, and tucked it under the stone. The wind brushed her hair, carrying a familiar echo of laughter, theirs from long ago. As the sun dipped low, she smiled, realizing that the best part of looking back isn't reliving what was. It's realizing how far you've come. And with that, she stood, turned toward the horizon, and walked away lighter, freer, and finally whole. They wrote letters to the future, but what they found was themselves. A letter to my future self reminds us that time changes everything, except the people we once were deep down. If this story made you feel something, if it reminded you of your own dreams, your old friends, or who you used to be, don't forget to hit the like button. Share it with someone who needs to remember. And subscribe for more stories that touch the heart. Tell me in the comments, what would you say to your younger self if you had the chance? Because sometimes the letters we write for the future are really meant for the past.